following is a CUNY TV special presentation.
Thank you all for coming, and we're very excited to host this breakfast downtown. A lot of things are happening in Lower Manhattan post-Sandy, and you will see as we move into the spring and summer some major initiatives that will be occurring, particularly on Water Street and other areas that the city will be talking about very, very shortly. An amazing turnaround. Over 60,000 people now live downtown, with about 30% of them walking to work, and the energy throughout all of downtown, and obviously particularly at the World Trade Center site, is very, very exciting. ABNY, as most of you know, brings together the diverse fabric of our city, the business, labor, government, not-for-profit, and we've convened this morning to focus on really the future, what we believe is the future of the city, and that is New York as a technology hub. I was watching CNBC this morning, and the gentleman was on. There's a major conference at NASDAQ this morning about the major innovators, the 100 top innovators in the technology field. And the whole discussion was about New York City and how we've taken over Boston as the second most technology-focused city in the country. So it is exciting and apropos that we host this event today down here. We're also excited that joining us this morning are the finalists in a very innovative program that was promulgated by the EDC. It was a competition for tech companies to move and expand in Lower Manhattan. It's called Take the Helm program, and it's already seen, I think, tremendous response. We're thrilled that the finalists are here. If those finalists could just stand up and be recognized this morning for being here. We want to also thank EDC, HRNA, and the Downtown Alliance for their work on this program. This morning's guest is a young gentleman from a very important family of our city, and some members of the family I've known virtually my whole life, and honored that Billy Tisch and David's father, Dan, are here this morning. So thank you for joining us. And David has carved a path for himself and really at the forefront of what we are talking about this morning. And he's a prominent investor in the New York tech community, was the formerly managing director of TechStars program in New York City, and I'm sure most of you have seen the program on Bloomberg TV. David is also the managing partner of BoxGroup, a New York City-based seed stage angel capital firm. David has made over 40 investments in New York City-based companies. As an investor advisor, David has worked with over 50 startups, including GroupMe, which was sold to Skype, Boxy, Fab.com, Flavors.com, AdStruck, CrowdTwist, Goodsee, OnSwipe, Skillshare, and Data Miner. If everybody's noticed, I've taken my tie off to show that I'm cool. David was recently named, thank you. David was recently named to Mayor Bloomberg's Advisory Council on Technology. He also serves as the judge for Hack New York, Big Apps Hackathon, and participates in many other local startup events. Prior to joining TechStars, David served as Executive Vice President of Interactive Strategies at KGB, which is based in Moscow. I'm kidding about that. A global information service company, while David founded and led KnowMore.com, a social aggregating startup. As I mentioned, David is the great nephew of one of ABNY's founders, the late Bob Tisch. Bob and Larry Tisch and my dad are looking down in great pride for the generations that have followed them and know that the future of New York City is in good hands. So ladies and gentlemen, welcome our guest, David Tisch.
New York's a tech city. It's clear that we're the second biggest tech city, tech area in the country and in the world. We can answer that definitively and end the debate. New York's a tech city, and that's not going to change. Over the past 3 years, I've split my time between BoxGroup, which is a seed fund that I started, and I was a co-founder of TechStars New York. I'm now focused full-time on BoxGroup. BoxGroup is a seed stage fund that I launched in 2007 to invest in a company called Boxy. Since then, I've invested in over 90 companies, 60 of which are based and founded in New York City. I work alongside Adam Rothenberg, who joined me after 5 years at a hedge fund to work at TechStars and now left to work at BoxGroup as well. Many of our standout companies in the portfolio are based and founded in New York City. They include Fab.com, which has raised $171 million of venture capital, Behance, which was acquired by Adobe, GroupMe, which was acquired by Skype, and Vine, which was recently acquired and launched by Twitter, and about 85 others. 3 years ago, I joined TechStars to launch and run our New York program. The timing was right. The New York City community was at a point where some infrastructure at the early stage was really necessary. We hit that spot on the head. We brought 150 New York City-based mentors to help us out. Some of those mentors are in this room today and helped us emerge as what's clearly the second best accelerator program in the country behind a program out west. TechStars New York was truly a galvanizing force for New York City. We were the first organization that really brought people from all facets of the technology industry together into one room to support the companies that we funded. I ran 3 classes at TechStars, 36 companies total that we funded. Of those companies, 34 of those companies are still alive today and have raised over $85 million in venture capital. ThinkNear was acquired about 18 months after entering the TechStars program for $23 million by Telenav. Enough about me. New York City is only at the beginning of what I see as a transformative shift in the way that it fits into this city and the industry that it represents in New York City. We can see this effect in 2 ways. Tech has emerged as its own category and employs tens of thousands of people in New York City. The city is also home to so many diverse industries that are all being impacted significantly by technology. Industries like finance, media, advertising, retail, publishing, fashion, sports, and many more. Technology is only now beginning to impact those industries in a fundamental way that's shifting the way they work. I'm a believer that technology is eating this world, that software will eat the world, and that we, the tech industry, can play a transformative role in every industry throughout this city. Some examples of this are a company called DataMiner, which we funded about 1.5 years ago. DataMiner works to mine social media data to notify hedge funds and government of things that are about to be known to the rest of the world. And so they're an early detection signal that works with these totally outside technology industries to notify it about something that's happening in technology. They now compete with more traditional forms of financial news like Bloomberg and Reuters and sell to the banks and the hedge funds. A company called Nomi, which we funded only a couple months ago, through a plug-and-play installation, can be installed in a retail store to bring the same level of analytics that e-commerce has down to the offline level. These are just 2 examples of how technology is penetrating other industries. Technology is also affecting the way that we, as citizens of New York, live our everyday lives. Through a smartphone, which is a walk-around computer, we're basically allowed to increase the efficiency of what we do every day. Whether it's ordering groceries to your house or soon being able to hail a taxi cab with your iPhone, these examples penetrate almost everybody in here's lives. Companies like ZocDoc, Seamless, and Uber really do impact the way that we all live. Another company we invested in called Blue Apron is a subscription service which sends you 3 meals a week, just the raw ingredients, every single thing you need to make a home-cooked meal, and the instructions as to how to do it, all for $10 a meal. This is disruptive. This is disruptive to grocery stores. This is disruptive to online grocery stores. These innovations are going to continue to penetrate the way that we live our everyday lives. What's amazing about this city is that we have a local government that has built a foundation and a foundational policy to allow tech to thrive in this city. Broad initiatives such as the Cornell campus on Roosevelt Island and AFC, a high school that's focused solely on teaching kids how to code, are just the beginnings of these initiatives. Other targeted ones like Big Apps and Take the Helm, which all you guys did an amazing job yesterday presenting to what was clearly a pretty intimidating panel for the judges as well. But You guys did great. Congratulations to all the Take the Home finalists, and good luck tonight. The government's also established a digital media officer for the city. The city is going to focus now on improving broadband and allowing startup companies to have access to high-speed internet, which should allow this city to thrive for generations to come and be a competitive advantage for why companies should launch in New York City. Technology will impact the entire economy of this city, and our future leaders have to continue to let that community thrive and work with it to improve the foundational layers that will allow for that. With that in mind, the New York Tech Meetup, the largest community of tech-minded people in the New York area, and actually the entire world, which is pretty impressive, has put out a list of policy proposals for our next mayoral candidates to consider. I really hope that the next mayor will support these policies and our community as faithfully as the current administration has. New York City is a natural home for technology and entrepreneurship. This city is the home to the smartest people in the world who want to win, who want to be the best, and that's a totally unique thing. Beta testing a consumer app in this city is easier than anywhere else in the world. Think about it. If you go to any single subway stop and get off, it's a totally different demographic of people. That's a pretty awesome beta testing community to work in. The amount of talent in this city is enormous. And as the internet gets built out, the majority of innovation is taking place at different layers than just in pure technology. So the value of branding, the value of marketing, and most importantly, the value of design is really taking the forefront in the way that technology is evolving. New York is the home to great design. New York is a home to great branding and the home to great advertising. And as these things become more important in the internet, New York will as well. The maker community out in Brooklyn is impacting the hardware and software revolution on a daily basis. Education initiatives in this city, such as General Assembly and the Flatiron School and Skillshare, are allowing people to be trained in modern technologies that before you had to go to school to figure out. But the city needs more engineers, as do all cities. Early education is being put in place through the impact of these high schools. Marketing campaigns, such as the Made in New York, are being launched. But we as a city can do more to foster this innovation and to create this city as a great place to build a technology company. Over the past 2 years, we've seen companies like Facebook, Twitter, eBay, Microsoft, all open and build engineering offices in the city alongside Google, who has over 1,500 engineers. This is going to help the startup scene because as these engineers get recruited to the East Coast instead of the West Coast after college and go through these big companies and learn, they're going to trickle down into the startup world and have a deep effect. Also, the development of successful startups in New York and the cycle that they're going to go through as they exit and produce more and more entrepreneurs is going to be a huge, huge positive to this scene. Companies like Foursquare and Tumblr and MakerBot and Warby Parker, AppNexus, and others spawn this innovation. Numerous cycles of success will create further cycles of success. Kickstarter, a company that's home in Brooklyn and just bought a building that they're going to move into and own in Brooklyn to launch and run a lot of their art stuff, produces companies just off of their own platform. Etsy allows hobbies to become businesses. Technology is truly impacting this city from every single angle. I wanted to leave you with some observations about the New York City tech scene and some sort of takeaways that I've perceived over the past couple of years. One of the more interesting observations is the difference between New York City entrepreneurs and California entrepreneurs. In California, if you want to graduate school and be rich, the natural thing to do is to start a tech company. In New York, it's like the last thing to do. There are hundreds of other ways to be successful in New York other than doing a tech startup. So what that means is that the people in New York who are doing a tech startup opt in. And they actually care more, and they're doing it for a passion reason, not for an economics reason. And that's a pretty incredible thing. And I think that's some of the reason why the DNA of this community is a lot stronger and a lot more together than the communities in other cities. We're opt-in. The city needs more growth capital. Companies continue to go west to get funding. There's a very strong early stage ecosystem here that's been emerging for years. There's plenty of angel money. There are plenty of people who see the tech scene and say, I want to fund a startup, and that's an angel check. There's not plenty of the later stage money shifting to fund the growth companies that are in the city, and they continue to get funded by big VCs out west who have chosen not to make a home in New York City. Hopefully that changes. Forward-thinking people and forward-thinking large companies in mature industries will continue to invest and foster innovation and more startups. I've seen this personally happen in real estate and in publishing, in fashion, and finance, where established firms really disrupt themselves and modernize, and real estate landowners take their buildings and convert them to startup space, and financial firms start funding some of the emerging tech companies. This is really good. I hope we see more of that. We've seen big companies truly begin to understand how to work with startups. There are companies like Condé Nast and Bloomberg that have modernized in order to do BD with startups. The people in this room at big companies should understand how hard it is to start a company and to really work on their company being easier to work with for the startups, and that they do not harm them along the way. New Yorkers are honest, and we're honest with our feedback, and this is really important. For a startup, getting that honest feedback early on to know that they're doing something right or wrong is vital. And New York's the best place to get honest feedback. Nobody hides their words here. It takes a while to build a big company, and that takes patience, which New York doesn't have. And so we can't see companies go up and then when they're teetering start talking badly about them. That's going to hurt the entire ecosystem. So instead, being long-term and supportive and visionary to understand that these companies take 5-10 years to build is a really important thing for this city to understand. That's probably the advantage that San Francisco has on us. They have a much longer-term viewpoint as to how long these take. I'm clearly bullish on technology. I'm clearly bullish on New York City. I've invested a significant amount of capital into this ecosystem and committed to do so for a long time to come. I'm excited for what's next, for the businesses that many of you guys over here are building, and for the ones over here, maybe one day you'll go after your dream and realize New York is the city to start that in. Thank you very much.
David, thank you. That's, I think, a great framework and a lot of ideas and concepts that we will obviously be discussing. I forgot to introduce David's mother, Bonnie, who's here. Good morning. And David mentioned New York Tech Meetup, and we have Dawn Barber, who runs that and has really done an incredible job. Dawn, thank you for joining us. So we want to make this interactive. I'm sure there are questions in this room of all the smart young folks that are here. So we have some microphones.
First of all, very proud to be a good friend of your mom and dad, and to see you following the footsteps in the family. So could you give a little bit about your background and where you went to school and what got you into doing this as opposed to some of the other opportunities you served?
Yeah, I went to University of Pennsylvania. I studied history. I graduated in 2003 when the internet was a really bad idea. And the options were to go into finance consulting, and if you couldn't figure out how to do that, go to law school. So that's what I did. I went to NYU Law School. I graduated. I worked at 2 law firms over the summer. I spent a year at Vornado doing M&A work for them in the time when they were looking at Stuyvesant Town, and we bought the Manhattan Mall. And I really liked the idea of developing something, but I hated finance. And so I ran away from there. I started a company in 2006 when the internet in New York was sort of quiet. I failed/sold myself to this company, KGB, which is a Russian terrorist organization. And I worked there and ran their internet division for 2 years. We built a team of about 28 people, 16 data scientists to build a curation for the real-time web. And it was there that I really learned product management and how to work with engineers and designers and create a creative team. After I left there, I spent about 6 months working on a new startup before I ran into the guys from TechStars and decided to join and launch that program in New York. And this is what I love. I wake up every day and spend my time on the internet, and I can't wait to go home and use a computer.
But I hope no more hacking into banks. Questions from the audience? Young lady right there.
Hi, I'm Julie Farber from FEGS Health and Human Services, a nonprofit in the city. And we're actually getting ready to launch Center 4, a technology accelerator focused on expanding technology uptake and innovation for the nonprofit sector, for organizations doing social good. And so I'd just be interested to hear you talk a little bit about your thoughts in that realm.
How do you guys make money? No. So yeah, I think the word accelerator is really common these days. There are about, when we launched TechStars in New York, there were about 15 to 20 accelerators in the country that were operating. Today there are over 400 accelerators. That means that the accelerator asset class is producing over 4,000 companies a year, which is wild. So the challenge of being in an accelerator today is standing out. And if you're starting an accelerator, you have to stand out amongst 400 programs. If you're joining an accelerator as a company, you have to stand out amongst 4,000 companies. That's a pretty tough thing to do. And so I think unless you have a unique angle and a unique proprietary deal flow to come into your program, and you're guaranteed some ability to have some quality companies, I think it's really hard to emerge and sort of define yourself as different. I think, a non-for-profit angle, and there's a healthcare accelerator in New York, and there's an energy accelerator, and these ones have taken a different angle and applied to different companies than necessarily the consumer accelerators. And so there's probably a better chance if you're specific about what you're doing versus general.
Young lady.
I'm with NADAP, the Not-for-Profit Social Services Agency. I'm looking to find the intersection of a couple of things, and one is what you're talking about on the consumer side, and then remembering all of the hype just up to the last year or so about biotech. So where do they intersect in your world, or where do you think they intersect in New York City's world?
Where does hype intersect, or where does biotech?
Either.
I'm a huge believer in hype. I think that hype is the only way that startups have a chance to succeed. If startups are judged on what they've done so far, they're going to be terrible every time. And so it's only a startup that can really create a permission to get bigger. So if you think about a startup in terms of traction as being here, if their hype's here, that's where they're being judged. If their hype is up here, you now have a cushion to grow into that, and that's pretty incredible. And so I think that creating some buzz around your startup gives you some industry permission to actually grow into it and emerge as a bigger company than you currently are. Biotech, I don't know anything about.
There's a young gentleman back in.
Hi, I'm Jordan Barker. I work for Crown Acquisitions. Two-part question. First, I know you mentioned that you invest in a lot of different companies. So one, what is your involvement in those companies actively? And two, how do you manage and keep track of all your different investments?
Yeah, we don't sleep is the true answer. A lot of entrepreneurs who I work with will get emails at 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning because it sometimes takes those hours to maintain that deal flow. We work with currently 90 companies. We're a small investor, minority investor in all those companies. We've taken a portfolio and a network approach to the way we think about our investment thesis, and that means that our job is to add value in a network level. We're not going to dive in deep and spend days with the companies. It's unrealistic, and the check sizes and the participation that we're doing is small and doesn't make sense to do that. So instead, what we work on is scaling our side of the business. So whether it's introductions to venture capitalists, to BD, to M&A, to services that can help the companies, that's where we can really be a part. And I think the horizontal, so last year, together with TechStars and BoxGroup, Adam and I looked at about 6,000 companies, which is crazy. We only made 38 investments, and so there was a high selectivity from the companies we looked at, but what we get out of looking at 6,000 companies is an amazing horizontal view at the industry. You can really understand where the innovation's happening, where the clusters are, where it's really hard to emerge out of clusters. And I think that that gives us a unique perspective to add some value. And I think that the just sheer number of companies we work with and the amount of venture capitalists and BD and partnerships that they've had and that those can accrue back to our network is a really powerful thing. And that's the way we think about adding value. Is there a second part that I forgot?
Two questions right here.
Hi, I'm Michael Haberman from Pencil, so it's nonprofit morning asking the questions. We create relationships between businesses and public schools. So you're very hyped about the future of tech in New York City. What do you see as the biggest risks to New York City's future as a tech capital? And a little bit of a loaded question, but the fact that 30% of our kids are graduating from high school ready for college or career, how do you see that playing in as a potential risk?
Yeah, I think the biggest risk, in general, is a lack of education and sort of modernization of the education world towards what we do every day. I think the lack of people who understand innovation, and whether it's engineering, whether it's product and design, or whether it's how to launch a company from the ground up, that's not being taught at any form of early stage of education right now. If that doesn't change, I think the entire country's in some trouble. In terms of New York, the biggest thing that the city needs is real successful companies, and whether that's IPOs and public companies or whether that's billion-dollar exits, until we see a cycle of that capital and exits and sort of a reinvigoration of an angel community through success, In addition to, I think, I think the biggest, another big gap between New York and San Francisco is that in San Francisco, you have an experienced army that can come in as a new company emerges. So when Twitter's emerging, they can hire a C-level person who did growth at Facebook. In New York, if you're looking for that C-level person, that person doesn't exist here. That person hasn't done it before. That person hasn't built that company before. And so I think it takes a cycle or two for those experienced leaders to emerge and be able to come in and fill out a team as it's expanding. And so I think there's a lot of we need to find first-timers who can grow into this role versus experienced people who know exactly what they're doing.
You mentioned the lack of, there's angel investment here, but the second stage and third stage, what do we need to do to get that flowing to the city?
I think you have a couple different factors that are helpful. You have funds that are emerging and growing, and so there are certain funds in New York that continue to go later stage and write bigger checks, and that's really important. I think you see some of the West Coast funds think about establishing offices here. I think the biggest stretch is to think that a lot of the traditional finance firms are able to shift towards venture model. I think there's a lack of cultural connection that they're going to have with working with entrepreneurs and a lack of patience. And the horizon for return is very different from traditional finance, and so I don't know that it's a shift of capital in New York versus a creation of a later stage growth capital industry in New York.
Gustav Borgefalk from a Swedish company called Student Competitions. I was a bit interested in learning, what do you think it takes for a European company to come to the US and establish in New York to be successful?
Great question. I think it takes commitment more than anything, and it takes truly understanding the differences between the markets. And so we don't have much experience working with European companies because the barrier is a little bit higher. I think we're investors in about 4 or 5 companies that are from Europe that have moved to the United States, and I think that's what it probably takes is feet on the ground and a real true cultural understanding of the differences between the customers in different cultures. And so selling to a consumer in Sweden or a business in Sweden is very different than working with a consumer or a business in America. And until you get a true understanding of those differences, I think it's really hard to transfer.
Any more questions? Maria?
Hi, I'm Maria Turnus. Thanks for the great speech. I'm really excited that you mentioned the New York Tech Meetup mayoral platform, and it's great that the tech community is finding their voice. If you had one experience and then could demonstrate and say, all mayoral candidates, please do X, what would it be?
Don't screw this up. But that's it, I think the wheels are in motion for this city. I think the foundation's there, and I think that if we start to backtrack on any of those initiatives, we're in real trouble. And so there's the beginning pieces of things such as positions within the government or initiatives around broadband to increase the connectivity speed of internet startups and the accessibility to those high-speed connections. And hopefully there'll be more and more of that. And I think that the more we pull that back, the bigger trouble that this city's going to have in attracting great entrepreneurs.
I would just add, adding more focus in terms of the educational system and getting the young kids, whether it's coding or just understanding the power of the internet. And Dawn, and Andrew have, that's been one of their main themes. David, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your